as we look and stare into the abyss. You never know what's staring back at you. It's coming.
All these voices.
Don't worry, Sweet. This will only hurt a lot.
We had tons of activity, including a demon attack that called JC, the founder of Shadows Pit Paranormal, to puke all over the place like projectile vomit. It was insane, and he got scratched on the neck. We captured a disembodied face that was screaming, and we also captured a couple different full-body apparitions, which was badass. Now, Baba Yaga was a Slavic witch, but she was also a supernatural guardian. And basically what she did was beat back the forces of evil from the realm of the dead, made a deal with a bunch of witches in the woods in Armenia. She sold her soul, a nasty creature that I have actually had a run-in with myself. The bastard scratched the hell out of my car and jumped on it. It was a mess. I tell the story in the show.
It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoking gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me. Don't let them take you away.
They say staring into the abyss.
Don't let them bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in
I'm
your
saying
mind. Don't let them bring
I
you
already am lost.
down.
Staring into the abyss. Remember, there might be something staring back. Come get
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody today?
On tonight's episode, we will be talking about skinwalkers. Now, this is one of those subjects that a whole lot of people have made a whole lot of videos on YouTube about, but there is very little actual real information out there about them. Now, there's a very good reason for this. The lore of the skinwalkers is Native American lore, and the Native American people that actually know the truth about skinwalkers are rarely willing to discuss the actual lore about them. This is because of the very justifiable fear that if they talk about the skinwalkers, then the skinwalkers will come after them. I want to pause for a moment and stress that this is not simply explaining some old folklore about a creature that never really existed. Now, this may sound like the stuff of fairy tales, but I assure you it is very, very real. Tonight, I will be explaining in detail the lore of the skinwalkers, explaining how they do what they do, what they actually are, and how to stop them. Now, this show is not going to be the normal video that you see on skinwalkers when you look them up on YouTube or read an article about them. Because a lot of those videos and articles do not have the actual real information about skinwalkers in them. And I explained why that was. So first of all, let's answer the question of how do I know about skinwalkers? How do I know about these rituals? How do I know about this lore? I have Cherokee and I have Blackfoot blood running through my veins. I am not full-blooded, but I do have that blood connection to the culture. I grew up hearing the stories of the skinwalkers, and when I would go to powwows, I would sit and I would speak to the elders, and I would get their firsthand knowledge of these legends. I have actually spoken to shamans that have dealt with skinwalkers in real life. It was through those experiences that I was introduced to a native group that hunted all kinds of different creatures. Over the period of a couple of years, I was taken under their wing, so to speak, and I was taught an enormous amount about a lot of different creatures. I was taught how to kill them, what they could actually do, that sort of thing. This is how I was brought into the world of hunting these creatures and the evil forces that feed off of and destroy human lives. It's how I got started working cases and doing investigations and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I first got involved, I thought much like most people thought. I was always interested in these things. I studied them as a child. I used to go to the library and read all kinds of books about all these amazing creatures and mythologies and different lores, and I thought they were so interesting. But I thought that they were made up. I didn't believe any of them to be real. But through my actual real world experiences with this group and with these people, and hearing the firsthand accounts of other experiences that they had had, I came to realize that not all of these lores were just make-believe. That it wasn't simply legends and campfire tales that people used to tell at night when they were bored or to try to scare somebody. A lot of these things actually did exist, and some of them still do. Now, a lot of things in this field that you hear about aren't real. There is some BS out there. Some of these tales and these legends you hear are completely made up, such as Bloody Mary. Now, for those not familiar, which I don't know who that would be, but in case you're not familiar with Bloody Mary, the thing is you say Bloody Mary into the mirror 3 times at night, and Bloody Mary is supposed to show up and kill you. Now, I can tell you firsthand that does not happen because I've done that and nothing happened. So there is no entity of Bloody Mary that will come through the mirror and murder you. But Bloody Mary was based off several real-life people, their life stories. And it's also based upon the idea of mirror magic. If you want to hear more about that, we did an entire episode on Bloody Mary that you can listen to on the YouTube channel. It is fascinating. I go all into mirror magic. I explain it all. It's very, very good. But this is an episode about skinwalkers. I would like to start this episode off by clearing up a very common misconception about skinwalkers. Most people believe that skinwalkers are only a Navajo thing, and this is simply not true. Almost every native tribe's lore has legends of the skinwalkers. Also, a skinwalker is not some mythical creature or some monster that is born the way it is. It is not some demon-animal hybrid from hell. A skinwalker is a person that is a witch. Okay, now this needs some explanation and some clarification as well. In Western and European cultures, the term witch and witchcraft means something different than it does in the native culture. In those cultures, witchcraft is looked upon as being something negative. In today's culture, it's more accepted than it used to be with the rise of Wicca, but historically it has been looked at as a negative or as an evil thing. In the native culture, witchery, which is what I've always heard it called, is more ingrained in the culture. They don't look at magic as being a good or a bad thing exclusively on its own, because it can be either one depending on who is using it and why they are using it. Now, here is the first jaw-dropping moment of this episode. Magic is real. Now, I'm not saying that Harry Potter style magic, flying around on a broom and waving a wand, is real. But magic does exist. It is a real force that can be tapped into to bring about changes in not only the physical, but also the metaphysical world. A skinwalker is essentially a witch that has reached the absolute pinnacle of their power. Only someone with a massive amount of experience, knowledge, and power can take that next step and become a skinwalker. This is not your average everyday witch. This is not the person you know that's into Wicca that does little spells to try to bring money into their life or anything like that. This is not that, okay? This is a whole nother level. There are very few people that ever reach this level that you have to reach in order to become a skinwalker. Once the witch has reached that level, there is a whole series of things that they must do in order to actually become a skinwalker. The first thing that is required is for the witch to commit one of the most horrific and unthinkable acts known to mankind. The first step in the process is murdering a member of your immediate family. Now we're talking mom, dad, kids, that kind of thing. The murder has to be done in a very specific way that is really, really horrific. And once that is accomplished, you must complete a very complex ritual that is required during the process. If done correctly, you will then gain the ability to do the other rituals necessary for transforming yourself into an animal. Now, while in animal form, you will possess many different abilities. You'll have unnatural strength, speed, mental abilities, that kind of thing. And one way you can always tell a skinwalker apart from a normal animal is that the skinwalker will be much, much larger, and there'll always be some defect that isn't quite right. Whether it's a weird leg, it doesn't quite work right or look right, or maybe one of its ears isn't right. There's always something about it that's just wrong. It's just weird. It doesn't look right. In some cases, if the skinwalker is powerful enough, the eyes may be red, or they may have even a red glow to them. So you kill a member of your immediate family, you complete the ritual, but you still just can't snap your fingers and become a wolf. Okay, that's not how it works. The next step in this process is enchanted skins. Now, as you may imagine, this is a little more complicated than just running down to Walmart and picking up some enchanted skins in the hunting section. You must first have the skin of the animal that you want to transform into. After that, another complex ritual must be performed on the skin, which will enchant it. Once you have the enchanted skin, you must then put that skin on, and then you have to perform yet another ritual. And then this will enable you to transform into an animal while you're wearing that skin. Kinda. I say kinda because you are not actually physically transforming into that animal. Okay, it's not like Transformers where one second you're a car, next second you're standing up as a robot. That's not how it works. What you're doing is you are creating an illusion or a psychic impression of that animal that will surround you. To everyone else looking at you, it will appear that there's a giant werewolf or something standing in front of them. But it is still the person wearing the enchanted skin that is standing there. What surrounds that person is the psychic illusion of the wolf. Now, it may be an illusion, but it does have substance, and it is capable of causing you harm. I know that sounds strange, and it's kind of hard to understand. It's an illusion, but it also has substance. While wearing the enchanted skin, the skinwalker gains some very impressive abilities. I touched on that briefly a minute ago, but now I'm going to go into depth and explain that. The best analogy of how this works is a role-playing type video game, like Final Fantasy or something like that. As you gain experience, your level rises. And then you gain abilities. That's how it works in a video game. It works in a similar way for skinwalkers. The more time and the more experience that they have, the stronger they become. They learn as they go, they get more powerful as they go, and they gain new abilities. Okay, right away from day one, you are much stronger and much faster than a normal human being. Your natural abilities, which would be like strength, running, jumping, that kind of thing, are much, much greater than they were before you became a skinwalker. Now, over time, your mental and your psychic abilities will grow. Eventually, you'll gain the ability to project your thoughts into other people's minds, and ultimately, you will gain the ability to actually control that person to such a degree that it's almost as if you are operating them by remote control. The effectiveness of the mind control depends greatly on a few factors. The first of these is how strong the skinwalker actually is, how much experience it has doing this. And the second is the will of the person that it is trying to control. A weak-willed person is much more easily controlled than a strong-willed person. It is possible to resist the mind control of even a very strong skinwalker, but it is extremely difficult to do so. A good way to explain this and to determine if you're a weak-willed or a strong-willed person is hypnosis. A weak-willed person is very easy to hypnotize, and a strong-willed person is very difficult to hypnotize. That is essentially what we're talking about here. It's a form of hypnosis. A situation where this is utilized is like either getting you to come out of a locked house that they can't get into so that they can kill you, or let's say you're attempting to kill the skinwalker. Okay, say you're face to face with one of these things and you're trying to shoot them. You pull your weapon, you aim it at the creature, and you want to pull that trigger. The mind control can be used to stop you from pulling the trigger, or it can even cause you to turn the gun on yourself instead. So instead of shooting the skinwalker, you end up killing yourself. Now this makes a murder appear to be a suicide, and there's no trouble brought to the skinwalker because the cops think that it's just a suicide. Nothing to see here. Well, let's say that you're a strong-willed person and you manage to pull your weapon. The skinwalker attempts to make you turn the weapon on yourself, but you're able to overcome that and you pull the trigger. In this case, your aim is extremely, extremely important. This is because, remember, I said that the skinwalker appears as a much larger version of the animal, but it's still the person that's wearing the enchanted skin that's underneath that illusion. If you are aiming for a headshot, or maybe you're trying to shoot it right in the heart, the bullet is going to miss. It will appear that the bullet will strike right where you aimed, but in reality it's going to fly harmlessly over the head of the person that's underneath that illusion. The reason for this is the heart shot on the creature that you see in front of you is actually located above the head of the real person underneath, because the illusion is so much larger than the person inside of it. So it's almost like, think of it as a person wearing a giant mascot uniform. And if you try to shoot it between the eyes, you're not actually hitting it in between the eyes because it's actually looking out the mouth of the thing or something. Its head isn't actually there, it's down lower. That's what we're talking about here. A good rule of thumb is to aim somewhere just above the stomach, because that'll put you somewhere between the chest and the head of the actual skinwalker underneath. So you're going to have a pretty good chance of hitting center mass on the person inside. Of course, that's going to depend a lot on the actual size of the person inside. If it's a tall person, it's going to be higher than if it's a short person. You'll also need to be using silver bullets or a silver knife when you attack this thing. The silver will be able to neutralize the magic that the skinwalker is using to protect itself, and it will enable the bullet to do the damage that you intended it to do. Okay, I want to pause yet again to explain the whole silver thing, because I've got so many questions about silver in all these different shows we've done. There are many, many questions that regard using silver weapons and why they work. Silver and salt are linked to purity, and they can overcome the evil magic that is protecting the creatures that you need to use silver to kill. Now, the round, whether it's a bullet or the blade if it's a knife, does not need to be completely made of silver. Okay, you don't have to have like a pure silver knife or cast your own bullets strictly out of silver. What you can do is you can take your existing ammunition or blades and you can coat them with silver to achieve the same effect. Now you can either buy the forge and the silver bars to melt down and then dip them yourself, or if you don't want to do that and you don't have the money to do that, there are several companies out there that you can actually send things to and they will coat them in silver for you. The presence of silver is what is necessary, not that the bullet or the blade is made completely out of silver. Just want to clear that up so that everybody can understand, because you can't just go out and buy silver bullets. One of the ultimate abilities that a skinwalker can gain is the power to reanimate the dead. Okay, now I want you to understand this isn't just snapping their fingers and a dead person rises up and chases you like a zombie. This also requires the proper rituals to be performed and the proper spell components to do that. But it is something that a powerful skinwalker can do if it has the time and the materials needed. Once the corpse is reanimated, the skinwalker will have complete control of the dead person. Now, what makes skinwalkers so dangerous and such a frightening creature to deal with is that there is no clear and concise motive for why the skinwalker is doing what it's doing. Okay, it's not attacking you because it needs to feed. You are not food to a skinwalker because it's a person that is doing this. It's driven by the same motivations as any ordinary psychotic serial killer kind of person. The difference is it's just much, much more powerful and much, much more dangerous. Now, it could be greed or hatred or revenge, any number of things that causes you to find yourself in the crosshairs of one of these things. But once somebody becomes a skinwalker, anything that was good in them is now gone. These are purely evil creatures. Because you have to be evil to the core to even take the first step in this process and murder an immediate family member in the way that you have to murder them. Or really in any way. With a skinwalker, you're dealing with all of the evil base emotions in the human psyche. Hate, rage, greed, lust, revenge, jealousy. Revenge for me is the most dangerous because it doesn't even have to be revenge for the skinwalker. What I mean is people will actually hire the skinwalker to get revenge for them. They will pay money to the skinwalker to hunt you down. So basically what you're dealing with is a super powered hitman that is very, very difficult to stop. And there are many different ways that a skinwalker can take you out. Now sometimes it'll be exactly what you think it is. It'll look like a severe animal attack. The person will just be ripped to shreds and they'll think an animal did it. Other times, if they're powerful enough, like I said earlier, they will control your mind and they will make you kill yourself so that it looks like suicide. In some cases, if they want to ruin your reputation before they kill you, then they may have you kill other people. They may control your mind and have you go in and shoot up a restaurant or shoot up someplace or murder your family and then kill yourself. That kind of thing. Now, in other cases, and this is almost always the case in the revenge cases, where they want you to suffer, they will cause you to have a very long and a very painful illness that will end up killing you. Now, this is accomplished by blowing a certain powder onto you. Once this powder comes into contact with you, it is either breathed in or it can be absorbed through the skin. It'll cause you to become extremely ill, and ultimately you will die. This powder is enchanted through a separate ritual, and the base of the powder is the bones of children. Now, there are several other ingredients in this powder, but these spell components can vary depending on the desired effect that they wish the powder to have. So in other words, what kind of illness they want you to have, how they want you to suffer, how long they want it to go on, how long they want it to take. That is what will determine what the other ingredients for that powder will be. In most cases, the skinwalker will simply come up behind you in a public place or an elevator, something like that, and they'll blow a little bit of this powder onto the back of your neck or onto your arms or your legs if you're wearing short sleeves or shorts or something. You won't even realize that anything has happened. You won't feel anything other than maybe a small breeze at that. But a day or two later, you will become extremely ill, and then you will end up dying. Another way that they'll deliver the powder to you is by putting it in something that you're getting ready to eat or drink. This can be accomplished at a restaurant. This can be accomplished anywhere where you're eating or drinking. If you turn your head for 1 minute, they can pop it right in there. All it takes is for you to have some of this in your system. The final way is through an extremely small chip of bone that has been treated with the spell components. This very, very tiny bone chip is delivered through a blowgun, much like when we used to shoot spitballs in school. Once the chip penetrates the skin, the job is done. And you get sick, and you die. So now the million-dollar question. What do you do if a skinwalker is trying to kill you? Now that is assuming, of course, that you have survived your first encounter with a skinwalker, and you now know that there's one after you, and you're still breathing to try and figure out what to do about it. The very best thing to do, and the safest way to handle it, is to contact a shaman that is familiar with skinwalkers and how to handle them. Now that approach is obviously not going to be for everyone, because the overwhelming majority of people don't even know anyone that has ever even met a shaman or know how to even begin to find one. If you want to try to find one, a good place to start is to find out what kind of native tribes are in your area and start contacting people and trying to find a shaman. You might get lucky and find a shaman, and if you get lucky enough, you'll find one that actually knows how to deal with skinwalkers and can help you. If you're going to try and kill it yourself, first of all, good luck. Make sure that you're using silver, and also take into account the actual size of the person and not the illusion. I say good luck because these things do not die easy, and it is very, very difficult to target them because you don't know how big or where the actual person is inside that illusion, so you're kind of just firing into the dark. You don't really know where that person is to kill them. Another way you can deal with a skinwalker that comes directly from the lore takes a bit of detective work. You need to find out the skinwalker's true identity and their true name. Once you have the real name of the skinwalker, you can command it to leave you alone by name, and it will stop coming after you. Now, before you ask, I have absolutely no idea why this works, or even know 100% that it will work, but the lore states that it will work, that you can call it out by name and command it to leave you alone, and it'll stop coming after you. The lore also states that you can strip a skinwalker of its power forever if you can get it to speak to you while it's in its animal form. The skinwalker is capable of speech while it is in animal form, because it is still a person. But it never does so, because that will cause it to lose its power to transform forever. Now this will require some strategic planning and probably some trickery. But the lore states that if it speaks while it's in its animal form, it will lose its power forever. Now maybe this has something to do with speaking and revealing that the illusion is false, and that somehow destroys the illusion. And maybe when it destroys the illusion, it destroys the ability to produce that illusion. Also, I don't exactly know why it works. Nobody's ever had the answer that I've spoken to. But the lore states that that will work as well. Skinwalkers are not just the stuff of legends, long extinct or from some long ago forgotten time when the earth was a much, much more primal place. Skinwalkers exist today. There are living, breathing, active skinwalkers that are out there right now. Now, the overwhelming majority of you will live your entire lives without ever seeing one or meeting anyone that has ever seen one. But the same can be said about hundreds of species of animals as well. Most of you will live your entire lives without ever seeing a flying squirrel, or without ever seeing a sperm whale in person. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist. If you find yourself in a situation where you're dealing with one of these things, I do not envy you, because they are very, very difficult to deal with on your own. I will tell you that I had some extreme reservations about doing this show. As I said before, the people that know the truth about these things in the native culture do not speak about them. I was always taught to never speak about skinwalkers. I was also taught never to speak about a lot of these creatures that we talk about on this show. Now, part of that is the very real possibility that if you speak about the skinwalkers and they find out, that one of them will come after you. Now, that is not because they have some supernatural ability to psychically know that you're talking about them. Okay? It's not like they say, I have this psychic feeling that there's a redneck in the mountains of Virginia that's talking about me right now, and I got to go kill him. It's not how it works. But you run a very real risk of running into trouble if they do find out. The other reason, and frankly the main reason, that I had severe reservations about doing this show is because this is a Native American issue. And I was always taught not to speak to the outside world about these things because it was Native business. And you do not discuss Native business with the rest of the world. Now, when I say that, I certainly do not mean to imply that every single Native American everywhere in the country feels this way. But this was my experience. This is how I was taught by those people that taught me about the skinwalkers and many of these other creatures. I was always told, you never talk about this stuff with other people. The reason that I decided to do the show was not because I had some overwhelming urge to betray the trust of those noble men and women. The reason that I decided to do this show, and frankly the reason that I decided to do Staring into the Abyss in the first place, is to try and get the truth out there. To weed through all the BS and to clear up the misconceptions about a lot of these creatures. When you're talking about skinwalkers, there is a ton of garbage out there about them that is complete and absolute BS. This subject caught on and it became popular, and now you have a lot of people that are looking to jump onto the bandwagon of a popular subject, and in the process are bastardizing and making a mockery of the actual lore and traditions of the very people that taught me a lot of what I know about these creatures. Now, when I say that, I'm not trying to portray myself as some white knight that's riding in to save the native culture or anything like that. I just couldn't sit back and say nothing and do nothing while this culture and this lore that I love so much is being twisted and destroyed. To those that guided me on my journey, I say thank you. And I ask for forgiveness if I have let you down by speaking out publicly on a lot of the creatures that we do shows on. The reason I have done so is because I honestly believe that the days of hiding in the shadows and never speaking about the things that we know to be true simply must come to an end. Only time will judge whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong on that one. But I think that having the real information is absolutely vital for the people that are actually dealing with any one of these creatures in their real lives. If you are under the understanding and the misconception that a skinwalker is some half demon, half animal hybrid from the pits of hell or some other such nonsense, and yes, that was actually said in one of these videos that I was talking about, and you believe that it's completely random who it attacks, then you do not have the proper information to try and deal with the situation. The first rule of warfare is always know your enemy. If you do not know how to actually hurt or kill whatever creature is trying to hurt or kill you, but instead you try some made up BS method that has no actual basis in the lore, then you will very quickly find yourself on the wrong side of about 6 feet of dirt. We are seeing more and more accounts of all kinds of different creatures that most people always believed were fairy tales. if they're stepping their game up, then we must step ours up as well. As these things become more common and there are more and more reports of them, we simply must get the truth out about how to deal with them. Now, in some cases, that truth is born of experience, from actually facing off and dealing with things in real life, on cases, on investigations, on hunts. In some cases, that truth comes from lore that is passed down. So it is our best weapon in a fight that we're going into with no experience. We can only trust that the people that have passed this lore down, the people that it originates from, knew what they were talking about. In a lot of cases, from personal experience, the lore has proven correct when dealing with some of these things. But there are things out there that actually exist. And I think it's extremely important that people have good information if they're dealing with it, especially now when you have the whole paranormal field becoming so popular. And you have a lot of people that are wanting to be ghost hunters. They're wanting to go out there and do paranormal investigations and do ghost hunts. And you see it all the time now with demons. People are getting into the demon field, and they're really trying to hunt down demons and find demons and talk to demons and get evidence of demons, that kind of thing. And a lot of these people just don't understand how dangerous demons really are. Demons will destroy your entire world. They are nothing to be messed with. They are 100% real, and they are capable of destroying everything you love. I just believe in people being prepared. So with that being said, I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and get his opinions on everything.
The whole thing about skinwalkers and werewolves. See, the werewolf is a very interesting story. That's something that can turn into a wolf, and only at certain times, unless they know how to actually. It matters how old it is, and that's more of a curse. And you have to be bitten by a wolf or be cursed. A skinwalker is what you were saying they say it's a Navajo witch, or the Native Americans believe they call it a Navajo witch. The word means Yashi Noshi. Noshi, it's hard to say the word, but it means person that can walk on all fours. And not only can they transform to wolves, coyotes, owls, dogs, humans, and females, majority of the time they are males, but they can be a female, and he's right, you have to kill somebody in your immediate family. But these things actually can talk, what I've been heard. I've listened to some of the stories and lore about it, and I've heard different on that they can pretend. What they look like is a distorted version, like you were saying, of an animal, but you could tell they're not, with their red eyes and their bodies look tore up, and you just could see them with their hands. So basically, they can do voices of the person you're either with or somebody you know to lure you out to the whatever you're at, the forest or the desert, and they can lure you out to kill you, basically. Or they can come to your house. But I've listened to stories, like he's saying, you have to get a Sherman or somebody who knows how to mess with these things, because you can't kill it. Even with silver, and the reason why silver kills these kind of creatures is because it's pure. It's a pure substance, pure silver, and you get it blessed by holy water or a priest or whatever, and that could kill one of them if you're lucky enough to touch one of them, because they're not like any human you think. They're superhuman. They do wear skin of the animal they're killing, and they can transform, but it's different than what you think. It isn't like a straight owl. It's a giant owl. It has human hands, and it's distorted, or it could be a coyote or a dog with it. Just, you could tell it's not right. There's something about it. And if something like that's coming after you, it's either they're up to no good, either they had somebody paid them to take care of you, because that's what happens, or it's just they're doing bad altogether because I think they get certain powers when they do bad things to people. I think they get, like they were saying, Final Fantasy or Warcraft, you get more and more strength the more and more bad things you do. And basically these things or humans or whatever, they went later down in time, they get more and more evil, and like you said, rage, but they become more primal. And basically what you're dealing with is basically something who can shift change into anything. It's not a werewolf. Werewolves can change into a monster that kills you. That's different. There's a whole freaking different story on that they could eat you and cut you in pieces and do whatever you got to do. They're just something you don't want after you. They're basically mythological too. But now with skinwalkers, that's different. It's a different thing. It's like a being who can change into different shapes, shape shifting to anything it wants. And it's a little bit different what you're dealing with. And it's something a lot of natives and Navajos don't like to talk about because it can come after you. And that's why they don't talk about it. Or they will try to keep from using the name, and they try to get out of it. But that's all I have really to say about it. I mean, I've read a little bit about it and heard some stories, but it's very interesting, Hershey.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole imitation of voice thing about how they can sound like other people to draw you out. This is a prime example of what I was talking about, of where when you look at the popular culture stuff on Skinwalkers and you match it up against the actual lore, the real legends that come from the native people, what he's talking about is it is said that a Skinwalker can remember when I was talking about how it gains abilities as time goes on and it becomes more powerful and more experienced? When it reaches near the pinnacle of its power as a Skinwalker, one of the abilities that it gains is the power to actually transform into people. Okay, so it can actually become you. Okay, it can shift into you. Now, it's not you, you're still you. Okay, if it was standing beside you, there would be you, and then there would be a bastard version of you that's kind of a little off. Okay, that's what I'm talking here. It can mimic you. Now, the voice thing he's talking about is not the Skinwalker's actual voice. It is not the Skinwalker speaking. What that is a manifestation of voice, the same way that the appearance is a manifestation, but it's not reality. Okay, so when this thing is manifesting your voice to draw you out, it is not actually speaking itself. It is just a how should I say this? Like a psychic manifestation of a voice. It is a replica. It is not the actual creature speaking. And according to the lore, the actual legends, if you can get it to speak while it's in its animal form, it will lose its power. But when it calls to you to bring you out, when it's mimicking the human voice that it is manifesting as, that is not the actual creature's voice. It's not the creature speaking. That voice is just an audible manifestation, the same way the form that it's taking is a visual manifestation. It's not real. Okay, it's not that creature actually speaking. So that's why it doesn't lose its power if it calls to you in your voice. Does that make sense? I mean, and like I said, this is one of those things that it's a prime example of what I was talking about, to where you have people that write articles and that do videos on this that don't actually know the legends. They don't know the real lore. They don't have any real experience in the native cultures to actually be able to bring you the real thing. You have somebody who read something somewhere and then repeats it that doesn't have any idea really what they're talking about. I mean, that's I'm so glad that old boy brought that up, because that just goes to prove the point that I'm talking about. The information that they're giving out isn't always correct. You have a lot of things that are said about the Skinwalker that's just not true. You know, that's fanciful and it's made up. And then you have other information that is just outright wrong. and it's wrong in a dangerous way. Because, I mean, literally, guys, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I have seen some of these videos, and it's laughable. I mean, some of them claim that skinwalkers are half demon, half animal creatures from hell that rise up in the night and they come and stalk their prey. It's just freaking nonsense. You know what I mean? It's 100% nonsense. When you're dealing with something this dangerous, because make no mistake, man, skinwalkers are real. You know, this isn't something we're talking about that like the Loch Ness monster. I wonder if it's real or if it's not real. Is there something actually there? Or are they seeing fish? What's going on? It's not one of those situations where there's any doubt whether these creatures actually exist or not. But it's one of those things that I'm telling you is a real thing. And I think it's very, very important to have accurate information and know what you're really dealing with. When they are nonsense, believe me, I will tell you, this is nonsense. Skinwalkers are not nonsense. Skinwalkers are something to be respected. You have to understand that this is something that's real. Okay? This is something that's dangerous. This is something that can kill you. These things aren't anything to play with. You might find yourself involved in a situation where you're dealing with something that you really do not understand, and you have no idea the amount of hell that you just unleashed on your life.
And yes, like he says, please don't mess with stuff you don't know. This is coming from somebody who used to have a coven and have a group of people that followed him. And this is no joke, I really was. I used to be in the occult. And trust me, it will mess up your life forever. And these things are not what you want to be after you. It's not something that you want to mess with. And a lot of people think they're ghost hunters and demonologists and all this crap. That's something you don't want after you. It could kill you. And it could kill your family. It can go after your whole way of living. So that's just the warning I'm going to give you. And I want to give a shout out to everybody now for listening to this show, Staring into the Abyss on the radio, and our TV show on YouTube, on James Hershey's YouTube page. You can catch our shows from Staring and Tells. I'm going to try to go to this asylum if I can find it. But that's where I'm going to try to go next. And I'll tell you guys more down the road about it. But I want to thank you guys all for following us out there in the paranormal community. And hopefully we can get to every community, because that's what we all want, to teach people the truth about this, or best we can. Or is this stuff fake, or is this stuff real? That's what we try to do, guys. And I hope you love this show. I hope you guys listen to it on Parax every Sunday, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. And if you don't catch it, check James Hershey's YouTube page. He'll tell you about it. You want to buy some merchandise from both shows, go on. He'll tell you where to go on the merchandise site. And I hope everybody has a good night. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Hunters, Demon Lovers, I love you. And I love doing this for you guys. Since I was a kid, I used to like monster movies, horror movies, and I started getting into cryptozoology, ghost, everything. All that stuff, the occult, and I fell in love with it, and that's why I do it, because I enjoy this. I'll do it for free for the rest of my life. I don't care. So you guys have a great night. I love you guys. Good night.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the show tonight. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, please check out the other videos. There's a ton of stuff there for you guys. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That helps us out a lot. I greatly appreciate that. If you're listening on the radio, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. And if you have not been to the channel yet, please go and check it out and subscribe. You guys will love it. There's every episode of Staring into the Abyss, every episode of Tales from the Abyss. There's paranormal news videos. There's all kinds of paranormal themed content there for you to enjoy, and it's 100% free. One thing that I want to do that we're working on is we're going to do a show coming up in the near future all about your paranormal experiences. We've talked about ourselves on this show. We've talked about the things that we've done, the things that we've seen. We've gone deep into history. We've gone deep into lore on a bunch of different creatures and given you a lot of really good information, and we've answered a lot of really cool questions. But you guys, the audience, are the ones that make it all possible. So it's obvious you are interested in the paranormal, and I imagine there's a lot of you that have had your own paranormal experiences. So I thought it would be a really cool idea to put a show together where we talk about that. Where I read some of your letters and some of your paranormal experiences, and then maybe me and old boy can chime in a little bit on it and what we think might be going on or whatever. And also, if you have questions you want us to answer, I might get to some of that in that show as well. I don't know for sure if that's going to work, if it's going to be a good concept to do, but I think it'll be fun. So if you have paranormal experiences in your life, if you've seen monsters, if you've seen creatures, if you've seen some of the cryptos out there, if you've had run-ins with ghosts or demons or shadow people, or if you've seen aliens or spaceships or whatever, and you want to tell your tale, you want it to be featured on that episode, look us up on Facebook and find our Staring Into the Abyss Facebook page. And while you're there, go ahead and like the page. And also you can send us a message there or leave us a post there about your experiences. You can also find me on Facebook, James Hershey. My author page is James Hershey Jr. There's a group there, the horror author James Hershey Jr. fan group appreciation, something like that I check into regularly. You can find, basically just type my name in, there's a bunch of stuff that'll come up. And you can contact me on any of those. And just let me know your story. And if it's good and I like it, and I think it'll be entertaining and that it'll be valuable for other people to hear as well, then I will try to include that on that episode. As always, thank you guys so much for all the support that you give us and for all of your kind words and your love, basically. I hope that on this episode, I was able to do the subject matter justice. I hope that I was able to go into enough detail on this to where it's really beneficial and worth something to you guys. On some episodes, I just can't. And I know that gets frustrating sometimes when there's things that I can't talk about. But you have to understand that in my life, I've done a lot of different things. I've done some pretty spectacular things. I was a Mensa kid. I was in the Mensa program. I worked for NASA at one point through that program. There's things that I know and things that I've seen in my life that I simply cannot talk about. I'm not allowed to talk about. I would be in a lot of trouble if I disclosed some of the things that I could disclose. So when we get into those kind of territories, I have to be very, very careful what I say. And I know that frustrates some of you, and I appreciate that, and I apologize for that, but that's just the way it is. I can't put my life or my family or my freedom or anything like that in jeopardy by saying something I shouldn't be saying, that I'm not allowed to say. That is the reason why we have not done that many shows on aliens and stuff like that, is because of my past background and the things that I've seen and done. I can't really be honest on those episodes the way I like to be with you guys. And when I say guys, I mean guys and girls. I know that there's women that listen as well, and we love you very much. Thank you very much for your support. That's just the way I talk. I don't mean any offense by it. But when I do an episode, I try to be 100% honest with you guys. I try to really open up and give you everything I've got. On some of those subjects, honestly, I just can't. I got into that a little bit on an episode the other day where I was talking about something that was coming that was going to be mind-blowing and all that, but I couldn't go into detail, and it upset some people that I couldn't give you the exact details, and I understand that. And once again, I apologize for that, but I am simply not allowed to do so at this point. There may come a point where I can, where it's okay to talk about, and then believe me, I will let you know what I know, but until that point comes, it's just not safe to do so yet. So I hope that you can understand that, and if you don't, then once again, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. But I hope to be able to bring you a lot of different interesting and fun shows in the future. We will always go above and beyond to try to give you the best information we can possibly give you. And I hope that we live up to that for you guys, because you mean a lot to us. We really appreciate the fact that you care enough to tune in every week and listen. That's awesome. That really is. And what a lot of the audience doesn't know and doesn't understand is just how much support we actually get from you guys, how many emails and how many messages and how many just words of encouragement and words of love that we receive, both of us, from you guys. And that is beyond amazing. And for that, I am forever grateful. So with that being said, we're just about out of time here. So you know where the merch store is at teespring.com/store/staring the abyss. You can go check that out if you want merchandise. I'm not going to give you the whole spiel tonight. I just want to tell you thank you, and I want to tell you that I love you. And until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.